Black Cat Lounge is sponsored by Beacon, a home for those who have a passion for filmmaking and the unusual. The Haunted Hinsdale House. Those who walk there do not walk alone. Paraware, apparel for the action-seeking paranormal investigator. Dragonfly art and soul for all of your magical, metaphysical, and spiritual needs. Mystery Control, your go-to feed for science, magic, true crime, the paranormal, and so much more. Niagara, one of the top rated destinations in Western New York. The Black Cat Lounge is part of the Paraflix Entertainment Network. Everybody, how are you today? It's a Tuesday night here in the Black Cat Lounge, and I am so thrilled that you guys are here. You notice I am wearing my official Black Cat Lounge. I'm kind of chilly, cold hoodie today because it is a little chilly here in Western New York, but it's November. What do you expect? It's one of those great times of the year where, you know, I am one of those people as a black and white photographer I absolutely love. I love the starkness and the grays. I love it. It just brings so much out. And you know what? If the fog and you know, if you go and you start doing those Dutch angles, you start doing a little craziness, they just come out so wonderful. Just wonderful. So life is good. It's November, and November should be great for all of you. We got a great show for you tonight. It's phenomenal. It's just a phenomenal. We're gonna talk to BCL Thomas. We're gonna talk about her book. This is a great book, and we're going to talk about how you guys can get it. You guys really have to read this, especially you guys that are interested in the occult or the I shouldn't say the occult, but like a infestation, really hardcore haunting, and the results of it. So you guys will like it. We're going to proceed to see. I'll be back in a couple seconds. Listen, before I go on, I just want to just bring up that our good friends at Nickel City Fear Company are having a can drive for the needy, and he's making cookies. He's insane. Him and that's Tony Bravo and our friend Jolene are crazy. They're baking all these crazy cookies in their little their little kitchen, and they really are trying to make a good strive for the needy during this holiday season. And we all know, unfortunately, right now, we all know what it's like out there, and it's not pretty. So let's all try to lend a hand and just be good humans for a change. Let's just be good humans. I know it's tough to be a good human. Yes, I know, because I've worked hard at it. It hasn't worked that well for me. But anyway, let's bring on our guest tonight. I met CL Thomas. I'm gonna have to ask her how we got in touch with each other. I thought, I know how, through Eerie Magazine, and it's a fantastic magazine. I had to think you know what? I'm old. Okay, guys, give me a break. I'm old. I forget these things, and I thought what she was doing was monumental. I thought her work was monumental, and I really was amazed that during the course of the interview, our first interview, she mentioned that she wrote this book. And she was so gracious enough to send me a copy of this book. And I read it, and it's horrific. I'm just going to tell you, I'm going to come right out and tell you, it's horrific. So we're going to really kind of delve into that. And I think that you're going to enjoy it because it's a very interesting case, an extremely interesting case that I kind of understand a little bit more than I really should about it. So, guys, please welcome to the Black Cat Lounge, the one and only, and I'll just call and I only say this for my favorite guests, and everybody I have on as is a favorite guest, the effervescent, the iridescent CL Thomas. Hey, how are you? Thank you for being on tonight.
Hi, thank you for having me again.
It was so funny because all of a sudden I'm trying to think, how did we connect?
Well,
It's like,
now that you mentioned it, I couldn't remember either because we've had so many conversations since then.
yeah, yeah. Well, you know what I love is the fact that our conversations are about like how to get out there in the world, in doing what we do. How do we get about, just kind of raising up and trying to help people more than just like, well, I want fame and fortune, and that's what I thought was really, really important. And that's what I love about you, because it's not the fame and fortune that you're actually looking for. And I
No,
think the fact that you went through this situation really makes you look at things in a whole different way, doesn't it?
it does. And to be quite frank, honest with you, if that stuff didn't happen with that house, I probably wouldn't have explored ways to help people in the paranormal or spiritually, I should say. I'm not going to even say paranormal anymore. I'm just going to say spiritually.
Well, yeah, okay, let's just talk about that for a couple seconds here, because to me, the paranormal is nothing more than a subset of spirituality. And I know a lot of people will disagree with me on that, especially the hardcore spiritualists will disagree with me on that. But I really truly believe that, because of the fact that, what is the paranormal? Let's look at that. I mean, paranormal, what are you trying to do? You're trying to make intelligent contact.
Mhm.
You're trying to get those intelligent conversations, rather than having the little shiny, buttons, just go in and, just keep flashing all that. And I think there should be a higher calling. There should be a higher reason of why we do anything within the paranormal. What do you think?
Absolutely.
Yeah, do you
Absolutely.
think, I mean, do you think most paranormal investigators, and we'll get into your book in a second, because this is stuff we were just talking about.
You're
Do you,
you're opening Pandora's box here.
yeah, I know, and that's all right. Oh, that's okay. That's what, because you and I have a lot of the same opinions about this stuff. Um, do you think that paranormal investigators uh ought to have a goal in mind when they're doing this?
You know, so many out there right now are just in it for the wrong reasons. I mean, I've done a lot of interviewing. I've run my show, Small Town Tales, for 4 years, and now the Gateway's been on for 2 years. And I've gotten a chance to interview a whole lot of different paranormal investigators and even celebrities, all kinds of walks in this field. And for the most part, I just feel like people are, well, one thing in common with all of these people, I should say this, is that they've all experienced some kind of major loss, or something has happened to them. Either they've had like accidents or illnesses or whatever it may be. Something happened to them to get them seeking whether there's
Hmm.
life after death in the first place, right? So I feel like a lot of this is either a calling on your life, or even a message from the spirit world saying, "Hey, wake up." And right now, you look at the paranormal field and you see all the bickering, all the backstabbing, everything that's going on, and a lot of it,
Hmm.
I hate to say it, is led by these celebrities that are running a lot of the drama. It's become all a money game for a lot
It
of these
has.
people.
It has. And again, I mean, we were talking off air. I mean, my good friend Frank, who's in the room today, uh, we went to Dundee, and I'm not saying this stuff to be have a pat on the back at all, but we went to Dundee because it's a little tiny place, Dundee, Michigan, 5.5 hour drive for us, and all we asked was for a hotel room, no fees, nothing like that. Because why? We're trying to help. We're trying to give it. We're trying to get trying to reach out for the better good, and we're trying to go and maybe maybe set an example. Somebody else will go out there instead of going and saying, well, I need this to put food on my table, which so many people do. When you think about it, why can't we just go and help other people? And again, when I was a kid, I think I probably told you this last time. When I was a kid, I had a guy that this old guy that said to me, he goes, "What you're learning here is to be an addition to your life, not to be your life," which means go out there and get a job and use this as like, something that's intrinsic, something that you can, spirituality, something that you can live by, but get a job, work. And, I always think to myself how that affected me in my entire, and I hate to even call what I do a career, but how it affected me. And that's why now at this stage, I really feel that giving back is so, so, so important. So important. So, I mean, yeah, and I think a lot of it, I think a lot of the problem comes in is that I understand people should be compensated. Don't get me wrong. People need to be compensated. And it depends on your level of comfort when it comes to compensation. Should be an exchange of energy. Money is energy, but up to a certain point. Somebody comes up to me and says, can you help me? And it's like, if it's within our grasp, absolutely. And that's where people are missing it. So I'm telling you, you and I preach the exact same choir, which is not really a good thing for us.
Yeah, I've made a lot of enemies the last couple months from some of the stuff that I've pointed out, but it is what it is. Maybe they weren't meant to be part of my life anyhow, quite frankly.
And that's the way I feel.
Yeah.
And Tracy Murphy is on, and Tracy Murphy is the director of the Palmyra Museum, Palmyra, New York. And I go out there once a year and we do a fundraiser, and she's amazing. The location is amazing. And I got to tell you, we did table tipping with a heavy dining room table that moved, and they have it on tape, me even going, oh shit, because it even shocked me because this thing was so heavy. So I absolutely love doing it. And I think the big part of it is the fact that the reason I'm still in this field is the fact that I don't look for the big returns. I think that's the big thing, and maybe that's the reason why maybe I've been picked up by like so many different little shows and that. I mean, I don't know. I just was lucky, and that's just the way I felt, about it. So, but anyway, that's enough. That's enough about me and all this other stuff, and and all this because everybody out there knows all the drama that's going on in the paranormal field right now, and the two of us, we're in the background going, we have popcorn to watch this. So, so anyway, you wrote this phenomenal book, and it's Dancing with Demons. And let me just put it up on the screen for everybody so they can see what it is. There we are. Dancing with Demons, a Paranormal Encounter. And it is the true story of something that happened to you that, and I'm going to be honest with you. It kind of made me uncomfortable, and I've gone through some of this stuff, and it made me uncomfortable in the long run. After, on a couple chapters, I kind of like skimmed over because I could feel the hair on my back bristling up. And you actually put this into words and brought it out to share. Now, first off, I have to ask you, as an author, why did you do it? Why did you think it was so important for you to share this?
Well, it was something I thought about for a long time because I in a way, I kind of grew up with the paranormal, always had experiences with the paranormal. And that particular experience when I lived in that house was just so different. And it was the first time that it made me kind of fearful of the paranormal. But there was two things going on. Like, I feel like a lot of it might have been kind of my fault. in the long run, and some of it wasn't. I'll
We'll
talk
talk
more about
about
that
that.
later.
Listen, we'll talk about that because a lot of people will call some guy like me in and say, "Well, I opened the door and I didn't shut it." I don't really think that's what you
No,
did.
that
So
that's not what I mean, and I'll
no,
I'll tell you more about that later. But the other side of it too was at the time I wrote that book, everybody was talking about demons. It was popular in the media, but the way they were talking about it was head spinning and people spitting up nails, all of that sort of nonsense. Which,
yes,
well, I'm not going to
yes.
call it nonsense because maybe that does happen in some other world. I don't know, but
It in Bizarro world. I'm I'm
well,
not
some
gonna
kind of stuff happens
listen.
though.
You know what? I'm gonna go right out there and say yes. There's a possibility, but media has overdone it. And the problem with media being whether it's a movie or TV, people watch this and automatically believe that it's the truth. It's like, oh, if it's on the internet, it's a true thing. And there's there's so many more horrific components of something like this rather than the thrill ride of seeing, the Exorcist, that Reagan, the little girl in the movie, puke up pea soup. And I mean, it really is. And to be honest with you, the psychological, I'm just going to call it damage, the psychological damage that you underwent with this experience is far more horrific than if you had spit up nails.
That's true. That's true. But I think too, I almost feel like a lot of this, and you have more experience in this than I do when it comes to these kinds of cases, but I feel like that if there is a negative entity or a demonic presence, that they are going to attack you more spiritually and psychologically than they are physically. That's just me.
Exactly. I agree. Now, here's the hierarchy of attack. And this is, we talk again, this is something we were talking about. This is why I like talking with you because we talk about all this stuff off the air, so I can bring it up and it's fresh in my brain. But when you start looking at what they consider a classical possession or temporal possession attempt, is it can start as an infestation. And now we have found, because of all the paranormal interest and the obsession with the paranormal, it starts with obsession, then it goes into infestation,
Mm-hmm.
where it's more of a poltergeist activity, and then it goes into oppression, where it's there to go and tear you down to a point where it either makes you become more animalistic psychologically, or that you will take your life. And that is very
Yeah.
common. That's something that it's a universal over so many different traditions and religions. And and again, we talked about the late Malachi Martin's book Hostage to the Devil. And in order to become possessed, you have to be able to go, or even a temporal possession, you have to agree to it. And there's so many different factors that come into it. But when I read your book, I saw all these classic symptoms. And first of all, let's talk about where the house was located. Hardcore, because yours truly, as you can tell, is a Civil War buff who has slept on many battlefields in his life. So tell everybody where that came from.
Yeah, the house sat on the front lines to the Battle of Nashville. So, yeah, I used to garden a lot, and there was also a creek that ran right behind the house. Like we would sit on the back porch, and it had like this nice veranda. It was really big, and we were able to. It was like right over the creek, and I found cannonballs, like little 4-pounder cannonballs in
Mm-hmm.
that creek. I've dug up 3 ringers of all
Yep.
kinds. Some
Mini
were,
balls.
yeah, the
Mini
mini
balls. Yeah.
balls. Yeah, I have one of the buckles from the Civil War. It kind of got me into a lot of metal detecting. It sparked that interest in metal detecting. But yeah, the house sat right on the Battle of Nashville, and there's a lot of haunted things in that area as well.
This is very common, especially what I found is in places of high emotional impact. And battlefields are the classic case for high emotional impact. And where that was, you're almost where your house was located was almost I of course I had to look up the Battle of Nashville. Where you're pretty much located, I assume was right in that epicenter where things were
Yes.
clashing, where they were clashing,
Yes.
and there was hand-to-hand combat there. So now you have really high emotional states. So that makes sense. What kind of a house? Describe the house for us.
It was an old house. It wasn't, it wasn't Victorian, but it was more maybe mid, like 19th century, I would
Hmm.
say. So there was a paranormal research team that were the investigators of this house. And they came in and they did a first investigation, and they said that this was the first place that they investigated that they actually caught a lot of activity. They caught a lot of EVPs. Gosh, I think they had over 40 EVPs from this place from a weekend.
Wow.
Um,
Wow.
yeah,
Wow.
so they had a historian on the property, which I knew nothing about the property at all. I just moved from Pittsburgh to Nashville. Um, and I had no idea about the Civil War or any of that kind of stuff. And the historian dug all this stuff up. She dug up, and then sure enough, there was a plaque on the property, not where we could see it from the house, but just a little bit down that marks General Shaw or whatever. Was it Sherman? General Sherman, I think it was. Um, one of those guys had fallen not far from the house. And this is located right off of Franklin Pike, right
Mhm.
before it becomes Brentwood in
Yeah,
that area.
you had several, actually you had several generals
Yeah,
that
one
were
of them
in
had
there.
fallen. I can't remember which one, but she dug into the history of the place and found out that not only was this the front lines to the Battle of Nashville, but it was also the site of an old pre-antebellum home. So
Mhm.
there's a Kroger located there up on a hill right off of Franklin Pike, and that used to be the site of a plantation house. Well, that house, I think it was gone before she said like around 1880s or something like that. Something happened to the house, but at any rate, they had um, over 100 slaves. She said belonged at this property, and she said the slave quarters was right around where our place was.
Mhm.
So it very well might have sat right over our property. We don't know that for sure, but that's what she was saying. So she was able to dig up a lot of history to it.
What always interests me is that so many locations, especially when slave cemeteries. And why I know this stuff, I'm sorry because I'm full of useless knowledge. But the reason why I know this is the fact that I did some research into uh, the markings of slave graves in cemeteries, and for the most part, they were marked only with a stone, no
Hmm.
cross, nothing, just a stone. And later on, as we start, the industrial age, and we're starting to go and need this need of property, they're just disappeared. And now these cemeteries are gone, and they're disturbed. So a lot of times, and I hate to say, this sounds like Poltergeist 1, where, a house was built right on a cemetery, but it can happen. It can happen because we start going into the 50s when a lot of these homes were built, 40s and 50s. Uh, Nobody did archaeological surveys. They found some bones, they threw them back in the hole, and they dug basically a basement and didn't care. And that's just the way it worked. So a lot of these different locations are lost. So now this house, you guys moved into the house. How long did it take before things started to get interesting?
Probably a couple months, maybe. It wasn't very long. So it started slow.
Hmm.
Um, it,
Typical, very typical.
it's kind of like a tornado building or a big storm. It's very kind of quiet at first.
Yeah.
Maybe a few things will happen, but then it's enough to ignore it. and then it builds and builds and builds. That's what happened with this house. And when I first moved in there, I was with, I had a boyfriend that I moved in with, who was a medical student, and I was going to school as well. And he did a complete 180. He just completely changed from this house. I believe it's from the house. He became really angry all the time. Um, and at the same time that this was going on with him, little things were happening in the house. Like, and he was one of those people that, I don't want to say like all medical people are like this, but he definitely was. You know, things had to be in their place, and he's just one of
Mm-hmm.
those kind of guys. Um, so what would happen was the keys. We had a key rack right by the door, and I still do this actually. But the keys, after you would place them there, they wouldn't be there. They would be somewhere else, and then I would get the blame for that. And I didn't move his keys. You know, it was little stuff like that that would happen. I was hearing footsteps at this time, you know, just rustling, you know, the sound of like somebody walking in a room, that
And this
rustling.
wasn't at the time you had a neighbor because it was like a duplex. At
Yeah.
the time, now this was not your neighbor at all. You couldn't hear your neighbor at all,
No,
right?
no. And it wasn't, you know, you could hear a neighbor. You can definitely tell the difference between a neighbor next door and something happening in a room. So what I'm describing is more of like a rustling.
Mm-hmm.
Like somebody's directly in front of you. If you think of like a dog or a cat right in front of you, that sound, it's kind of hard to explain. Like
No,
a,
no. Anybody that's a paranormal investigator or somebody has gone through any kind of a haunting, these are things that are very, very common when we first start out, especially when you start getting that first contact.
yeah. And it just seemed to build from there. So it came to the point where my boyfriend became so angry and kind of violent that I asked him to move out. I was just done.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I wasn't thinking that the house was causing that at the time. So he moved out, and I had a best friend move in with me. And when she moved in, she started having the experiences as well. And that's when it really started to build. We started seeing shadows. It went from just rustling to footsteps. I got scratched at some point. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
a bag got thrown across the room. Um, it became like almost like I was fearful. I couldn't even sleep at night without the lights being on. It was that bad.
You went from infestation to oppression.
Yeah.
Classic steps, and it's it's so, unless you go through it, it's easy to go and read about it in a book, but unless you go through it or you know people have gone through it, it's a whole different story. Because okay, listen, I'm 68. I can't remember where I put anything. Listen, I'm lucky I can find my way into the basement now. But when you start going and repeatedly losing things, misplacing things,
Yes.
then it goes into uh you had, I think you said you had photos fall off the walls
I
too.
had, yes. Hmm.
So you start getting physical manifestations of some kind of energy that is going and making itself present. So now you have to sit there and you have to think to yourself, is it, am I just imagining this stuff? Is it coincidence or is it something else? What was your process? What I'm going to ask you something hard. What was your thought process at this time when this stuff started to like kind of build a little bit?
Well, you know, to be honest with you, at first I ignored it. You know, when my boyfriend lived in the house, I just ignored it. It wasn't until my roommate said, "Hey, we got to talk because there's stuff going on in the house,"
Mm-hmm.
and that's when I said, "Yeah, there is." Um, but at some point, I almost become disassociated or disassociative, I should say, because I started, you know, all the experiences I had in my life growing up, because, you know, I grew up seeing ghosts and things like that.
Right,
So,
right.
but this was a total different ball game. And so I became almost obsessed with it. It was almost as if it just sucked me right in. And I started going to haunted locations. I was always doing investigations. all I would listen to is like EVPs. Like, I don't know, something just came over me to
Do,
where,
do you feel like, do you feel as if it suckered you in, as it almost becomes an obsession? Because there are houses out there, locations that will turn around and make you become obsessed with either it or something about it.
yeah, it did. And oh man, it's hard to talk about even still. I became like a different person.
Mm-hmm.
I was not only was I very depressed, I was kind of mean. I didn't want people around me, and that's not me at all.
Isolating, yes.
Isolated, yes. And I don't know, it just escalated and escalated.
Now, the more that you started getting into the paranormal, as someone who is, here's where it's kind of amazing, because most paranormal investigators go to a location to experience something, then disengage and then leave and go back to their merry little home, and where the flowers are growing and it's nice and calm and everything. You went to a paranormal investigator, or a paranormal location, you investigated it, and then you came home and you had all of this going on. Do you think that you were adding into it? Do you think that your energy was adding into the phenomena that was surrounding you at your home, at that location?
I kind of believe so. I believe so. Everything was like a perfect storm.
It
And I
makes,
just didn't
yeah.
know any better. I didn't know any better to kind of place that stuff on the back burner and claim my own space and energy, I guess.
Who
At
did
that
you? I mean, now usually when a person gets to that point, then they start looking outward. You have you have to hit that low. And again, you were depressed. You hit that low, and you realized it.
Yeah.
Who did you look for? I mean, normally people will try to look outwardly for either mentorship or for aid or some kind of guidance.
So that's a hard question because I didn't know who to actually reach out to. Like I know now I reach out to Archangel Michael. Back then,
Hmm.
you have to understand, I was at such a low state that it never even occurred to me that an angel of all things would even answer that call. Does that make
Hmm.
sense?
Yes, it makes perfect sense. Makes perfect sense. I mean, my philosophy. I don't believe in heaven or hell. I don't believe in angels and demons. But there's an energy source that just takes the place. All we're doing is just using different names. So to me, by reaching out to Archangel Michael, you are going out there and trying to call in these higher vibrations in order to help you, in order to get through these situations and actually even end them. Makes perfect sense. That's absolutely 100%. You're right on about it.
I
Let
know.
me go ahead.
I'm
I'm sorry.
sorry.
Go ahead.
My roommate did call on. She's the one who called the investigators in.
Hmm.
And I remember they completely blamed me for the haunting.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. And I was so upset about it with them that, yeah, she gave me a lot of warnings and said, this is this, not so much that, it was 100% my fault, but she said that I had to really start standing up to the energy, that sort of thing, stop investigating. Um, there was also, there's a witch in Nashville, is the best way to describe her. She has an occult shop in
Hmm.
Nashville, has for many years. She's retired now, but she was one that I called on, and she really helped me along the way with a lot of this.
Now,
Um,
first off, I find fault in the paranormal investigator for placing blame on the victim. That's a no-no. Even even spiritualism 101, you never do that. You never that's wrong. Because,
in a lot of ways, though, she really was.
well, here's the thing. You have to be the right person at the right place at the right time in order to have phenomena happen. That's just the way it is. And if it's not always the person. I would say, okay, it was your fault if you were like dancing naked outside with a chicken around the fire, and you'd come in there and you're opening a portal or whatever, or what, and not closing it. Okay, yeah. Listen, we got to talk about that. But you just moved into the house and you had an interest in investigations. So no, I don't believe that. That was the wrong thing. I don't think so. There I've if anything, I think it was just because of your makeup, the way you were brought up, your experiences, that all added into the whole energy bubble around you, and that's why I'm sure it brought in more. May have helped go into it, but you're definitely not the only cause for that. What did the quote unquote, and I'll call her a witch because many of my friends are witches. Uh, what did she do? What did she advise you to?
This was later in the case, but she came over a couple times and did some walkthroughs and kind of showed me how to come into my own power and
Mm-hmm.
kind of set boundaries spiritually. I guess there's a way
Right.
to do that.
Yeah.
And just to change my frequency, my vibrations myself. Like it was almost like I had to do a life change, if that makes sense.
Makes perfect sense because that's exactly what I would counsel. That's exactly what I
Yeah.
would say to somebody. Yes.
Yeah, and her name is Tish, by the way. She
That,
is still in Nashville. She still does her thing. But we also had a priest come in too, and that just stirred things up even worse.
well, that you know what? I have to tell you that when I read that you brought in this book, Dancing with Demons by C.L. Thomas, when I read that, that was out of everything that I can say that I read in the book, that was my first red flag. And the only reason why I I said it was a red flag was because when I read it, this particular gentleman did not have the needed background because I interviewed and I've worked with a gentleman who was a lay gentleman who was in charge of the exorcism programs at a diocese, and it's a involved process, and they're trained with that along with how to go and run a parish. So a lot of times I'll let you tell what happened after he came in because I sit there and go, yes, I've seen this. I don't know how many times.
Oh man, it just became so much darker after that. It even looked like, have you ever seen a room after you burn incense or anything and has that hazy?
Yes.
That's exactly what it looked like in the house after he left. It just, yeah, that guy. And I want to make it clear that it's nothing about the Catholic Church or anything like that. It's not that they don't have any
Hmm.
power. That's not it. It's just for this particular case, it just wasn't the right thing.
People have to understand that certain religion, you can't go to just any paranormal investigator and say, I've got something in my house, cleanse it. They're not trained for it. You have to look for even New Agers, the love and lighters, I always call them. They go out there, they're not trained for it. They're only trained to see the light. They're not trained to do anything on the dark side. You've got to find just that right balance. And that's what's hard. That's so hard out there. Now, I mean, you really started to get into so much. You investigated the Bell Witch cave,
Yes.
which was like it's on. I hate to say it's on my bucket list, but it's on my bucket list. And what I was somebody's purring. Oh, I
I
love
know.
it. I know.
I'm sorry he's in here. I've meant to lock
Oh,
him
he's so
out.
no way. I love it. I love it so much. And look at him. He goes, "Oh, Mama, keep talking about it. I love it." Uh, what I want to ask you, you were finding objects in the house, which kind of led you to believe that this was not what was going on. The phenomena that was going on was not isolated incidents, were it? Was it?
No, it wasn't. So stuff wasn't appearing in the house. They were kind of disappearing from the house. So this is the kind of stuff I did back then. You're not supposed to take the rocks from the Bell Witch Cave for different reasons. And of course, I took the
I,
rock. That's just the kind of person I was.
I have a collection. Yes, I have a collection. I won't lie.
The rock sat on my dresser for the longest time, and we went to look for it, and it disappeared. It's just gone. I blamed my roommate for it. She said she swears up and down she didn't take it. The rock is just gone. We don't know what happened to it, and it was pretty big size. It was like this size. It wasn't like a little pebble or anything. It was heavy. It was made of iron. It just disappeared.
I won't tell you that I have dirt from Ed Gein's Ed Gein's house in my collection. So
Oh gosh.
that'll just give you an idea. I can commiserate with you. But do you guys didn't you find a cross and a rosary in the house too?
Oh yeah, I did. I forgot about that. It was in my it was in the back. So the hallway that my bedroom had a hallway in it, and
Hmm.
it would go into a walk-in closet and then the main bathroom, the master bathroom, I should say. That wall to the closet was shared with the duplex next door. And yeah, I one day I was just going through my stuff and there was like a rosary beads with a cross on it that we have no idea where that came from. Again, I blamed my roommate for it. We thought maybe the priest had done it, but he swears up and down he didn't do it. Um, it just showed up.
I find these in uh, locations that have a lot of hauntings that may have had previous hauntings, or something that was a little unnerving. And I have found same thing. I've found crosses, uh, Saint Anthony, Saint Benedict crosses, and medallions, and small medallions nailed to framework and stuff. So it's very common. And I had a case where there was a little girl. Something was crawling into bed with her at night, and she used to make like take all our pillows and have a fort. Where we've gone and we left all sorts of like medallions in the house when they moved out, so that whoever was in there next perhaps would not be have a problem. But no, let's move forward here. Things are really starting to kind of peak, and all of a sudden, I mean, you're still suffering, you still like depressed, you're still feeling bad, and all of a sudden now something physical happens to you. Tell us a
Yeah.
little bit. Yeah, it could, and believe me, I know it can be. This is kind of personal, but people have to understand that when you sometimes are exposed to long term negative energy, such as you have been, something physical can happen.
Yeah. So this is again hard for me to talk about. Not only was I suicidal throughout this whole thing, but I ended up getting diagnosed with stage 2 throat cancer. And it was like it was a quick, immediate thing. So I was diagnosed at Baptist Hospital. They sent me to a specialist because they pretty much said there was nothing they could do about it. And because of the cell that it was. So they sent me
Hmm.
to Vanderbilt um, Medical Center and they had me see a specialist. So after I was diagnosed, it wasn't even 2 weeks later where I was in surgery and already going through chemo. During this time, I was probably in the hospital for a month and a half, something like that. My roommate at the time got all my friends together and moved us out of the house. So she just packed everything up and left. But I don't, it really puts me out on a limb saying this, but I truly believe that all the stuff that was going on in that house really, it made me sick.
Hmm.
I really believe that. And I'm not saying that the paranormal can cause cancer, but in a way I kind of am.
I am.
Mhm.
When I
It's just
read
a hard
that,
thing to talk about.
seriously, when I read that part, my friend Johnny Zaffis, he's a demonologist. A lot of people know him. Ed and Lorraine Warren's nephew. He had told me in the past that long-term exposure to negative locations can cause physical and mental problems. And I can say, number one, I know firsthand several location owners that I feel have been affected mentally in a negative way because they are so associated and they live within these locations. Number one, they never leave. But also, he told me, and he's the one that told me about Father Malachi Martin's book, Hostage to the Devil, that Malachi believed that long term work as an exorcist, working with the negative energies, shortens their lives and shortens their lives across the board. And I have to say that in my research, I found it true. And I feel that a lot of what I had physically came from some of these negative locations and some of these negative things that that I had been investigating. And I'm a firm believer because what I have is a little rare. So I'm a firm believer that some of these locations can go and cause negative physical maladies. And now, okay, you're there, right? Now your roommates move you out. You're in a different location. You're in a total different location. How was your recovery and your mental state and uh I mean, what happened afterwards? That's to me is always what's important.
The after effects was it was a long road to recovery.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't easy. And
It
in the
never
book,
is.
I talk about a case that Hans Holzer had with the
Yes.
boy, and he says that that case in Texas, um, the name escapes me of the kid that's in there, but that was the case that he regretted because he couldn't reach this kid, and the kid ended up committing suicide. But there's this whole thing about changing your life, basically, and that's what I had to do. Long story short, I had to, a lot of people believe that to end a haunting or whatever, it's just, they get exorcist or whatever you call it, and that's it. But
It
there's
never
so
is.
much more to it. You
Yes.
really have
Yes.
to do the work and heal yourself spiritually in order to move forward.
People people are always looking for the quick fix. You know, let's bring some guy like me in a bundle of sage and run around the house and or somebody or a priest come in with some frankincense and holy water and talk and repeat the writ, and I mean people don't understand that, like you said, it's a perfect storm. And yes, I'm a firm believer that you can turn around and you can. I don't believe that you can rid a location of something evil, but I think that you can lessen it to a point where people can live in it. The problem
Mhm.
comes in is the people themselves. If they keep repeating this chaos that they're living in or
Yeah,
whatever's going on in their heads, and they don't do anything to work on that, the and I always say to reach a higher spirituality, whatever it is going to come back. It's going to come back. Now,
absolutely.
I have, this first of all, it's a fascinating interview. I just want to let you know about that. But I want to, I want to touch upon something that we talked so much about off air. One of my pet theories is that does negative energy lie dormant in locations until you get the right person there? Hinsdale House in the Southern Tier. I've done a lot of work up there. My friend Dan Kless owns it. I can say in with certainty that in the 1970s it peaked when the Dandy family moved in, and they had all sorts of phenomena that was going on almost on a daily basis sometimes. I can say that some other people that I've interviewed have said, well, he had some stuff going on, but it was just minor. It was nothing. Yet other people will go in and say it peaked. Other people like Chip Coffey, and Richard Estop, who I interviewed on the subject, they say, there's a really good chance that something just sits there and kind of waits. It's permeated in the location or the building itself. What do you think about that? Do you think that this location that you were living in, do you think it was laying dormant until just the right person yourself moved in?
That could be the case. That could be the case. But, there was other things that happened on that property as well. There's been a couple of deaths with that property back to back that were pretty strange as we were living there. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it could be the case.
Do you
Now that you
feel?
say that.
Yeah. Do you feel? Now, do you feel that you were targeted
Yeah, I do.
and by a central entity, or do you think you were targeted by the location itself? Because sometimes the location can feel like it's closing in on you, like it really targets you.
I couldn't say. It could be a combination of both,
It's interesting.
you
It's
know.
very very interesting because it.
I don't
Oh,
know.
go ahead.
I don't know. I don't have an answer for that.
Okay, let me ask you one last question about recovery. And you moved phenomena. You are a natural medium. There's no doubt about it. You've had experiences as a kid. When you moved out and you were in your recovery, and from that time on, did you have any of this negativity that latched onto you, kind of stayed with you? Or, and I'm not saying, listen, when you move out of something like that and you've gone through something horrific as you did, and then the medical stuff, yes, you're still going to have a little bit left in your auric field. But overall, what did you have any of this negative stuff kind of like follow you to another location?
Um, a little bit, but not to the extent of what happened in that house.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I always think about what happened. It's like cancer. It never leaves you. Um, the depression, that's something I struggle with off and on still.
Mm-hmm. I
Um,
and I think, and just as a little subplot on this, I think all of us that have either witnessed anything of this nature or work with it in any way, I believe a lot of us do suffer from of some kind of form of some kind of like a mental challenge almost, and I think a lot of us do suffer with from anxiety or depression. I know that a lot of the old mediums that I knew back when I was a kid, most of them all suffered from addictions and depressions. And I see it now within the field of the really true hardcore workers, or the people who I consider, like yourself, as a haunted survivor. So I do feel that this is something that is just, I think it's part of us. I think it becomes part of us whether we want it or not.
yeah,
Uh, I think I think we're all born with a little bit, but I think all of this, the energies and all of the experiences kind of keys it and becomes amped up, unfortunately. But I think first of all, I think you're very brave for even talking about depression and how it can go and be a part of the haunting, uh, and also your illness, cancer, that may have been caused by those type of energies, because we do know EMF in its purest form can cause cancer, can cause brain hemorrhage, and it can cause so much. So yeah, I believe in a lot of that. Now, I know that you have to go, because why? I'm on your show after this. But
yes,
before we go, where can everybody buy this fantastic book? I'm telling you, everybody, buy this book. There are books out there that I will say that are just like pablum. This is a hardcore book. It's an easy read, but it's a hardcore book because you'll be able to recognize all the stages. that we talked about tonight. And it is just an amazing story. Where can everybody get one of these?
clthomas.org.
Oh, wait a minute. Wait a minute. I'm sorry. I forgot to highlight that. There we are. clthomas.org. You know what? Thank you so much for coming on. This was a highlight. I've been looking forward to this show like all week. And it's, and it's not just because I think, that we have a lot in common and I enjoy talking with you, but I really think that the story is one that should be out there more, and more people should really be talking about it. This is a story that, listen, I think production companies should latch onto this and try to do a good interpretation of it, because it has so much to it, and it has such a fantastic ending, because it is a will to be better and to be so much more than what you were, and you're not just a victim, you are a victor in this. So it's fantastic. I would thank you thank you so much. What do you have? Talk about your magazine too. Talk about the magazine. I'm remiss. Because I was just so excited. I'm just verklempt. I'm a fanboy. Okay, I'll admit it.
Erie Expeditions magazine. It's been tabled for 2025 until 2026. That's when the next issue is going to come out.
That's fine.
Look for it in January.
Is it all paranormal, or are you trying to go and go into locations or because let's face it, pure paranormal is not as interesting as where it takes place.
It's a paranormal travel magazine, so it goes into haunted locations, haunted history. Just, it's kind of like dark traveling. So it'll take you through Romania, just all kinds of different places. And no, it does not talk about celebrities. You're not going to find that in this magazine.
Well, people don't realize that, because people don't realize that dark tourism is huge, and paratourism is a form of dark tourism, and we start seeing that now more and more. And that's why I think your magazine is just an amazing one. And I'm just so thankful that there are people like you out there that grasp that idea, and of course, you're out there just working and being part of. You're not obsessed anymore, and we're all thrilled with that. so please say you'll come on again. We'll talk more.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. Stay on the line. I'll be right back. Isn't she great? I think this was. I'm not lying. I seriously was looking forward to this interview all week. I love the book. I read it twice, and I made my notes, and I didn't even look at my notes today, because there was just so many things that I wanted to pick her brain on. Guys, I'm going to tell you again, we're getting into that holiday season. I'm big in the volunteerism and preservation. You don't have to work in a food line. Just even if you give a can of food someplace, that is huge. Please do it. Please do it. It means so much, especially in this economic climate. And so many people are in need. And do what you can. Do what you're comfortable doing, but do what you can. This is Tim Shaw. We're at the Black Cat Lounge, guys. Thank you so much for hanging out on a Tuesday night with me. And I'll see you where the elite meet, next to the dumpster transfer station, guys. Ciao. Take care. Bye-bye.